I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday the 13th of May, brought to you in part by Noramycin by Norbrook. Noramycin 300 LA is a proven go-to, effective and economical antibiotic for seasonal diseases in cattle. It's a must-have at your doctor and shoot, in your pickup, or in your saddlebag or four-wheeler. Still readily available without a script. For more information, go to norbrook.com. WASDE results, and by WASDE I mean the World Ag Supply and Demand Estimates, heavy on the estimates. These are just estimates by USDA. They're likely no better than the loudmouth at the coffee shop, but this is what they put out, and then this is what investors kind of go by, and it's in hard print. It's got a USDA letterhead, so like I always said when I worked for USDA, it may not be right, but it's official. But there's all kinds of facts and figures that go into this, and they did it for just about every crop you can imagine. But it goes into beginning stocks, it goes into crop production, it goes into usage, it goes into ending stocks, and then it's on a worldwide basis on top of just the US. And it's a lot of stuff to it. It also has weather forecasts in it, but basically what you need to know, as far as domestically, your ending stocks for corn were bearish to the corn market. Beans were neutral and wheat was neutral. Worldwide ending stocks, your corn was bearish to the corn market, beans were neutral to the bean market, and wheat was bullish, which we figured wheat would probably be bullish. And it's not a big shocker, and I don't know that it's that much, but bearish to the corn market were both your domestic and worldwide ending stocks, and corn ended regular trading session on Thursday up $3 a bushel. So didn't do too much there, but the report did come out before the board closed an hour or so, so we've pretty much seen the results of it. Shouldn't be too big of a knee-jerk reaction, although could be some more on your Kansas City hard red winter wheat, which was up big. I'll tell you when I get to the futures market. But you know, this report was a big one. I don't see that it's going to be a huge market mover, but it gives something to kind of base next month's report on, and that's kind of how it goes there. But there was a lot of consideration on the Ukraine and their grain production and ability to export or not ability to export. And of course USDA doesn't know any more than you and I know about that. I mean, you know, Ukraine could fall tomorrow, Russia steal all their grain and, you know, get in a big hurry to export it as quick as they could. We just don't know that. You know, Russia had a pretty good crop themselves there, but you know, there's a lot of countries on the other side of the globe that depend on that Ukrainian grain to feed their people. And so we don't know. You would think that that would kind of end up helping our exports, but the heck of it is, the inflation is so damn much here in the United States, and our fuel is so high that our grain markets don't compare. Other countries can't afford our grain because you know, we're in the Magoo administration, and we've got so much inflation here within our borders that we can't compare on a market basis. But talking about the Ukraine, there was no unanimous passage of the Ukrainian assistance bill that has been going on this week. Rand Paul kind of held it up there, and good for him. He wanted to look things over, but man, you talk about throwing money at stuff. It's unbelievable here how this new administration has thrown money at stuff, and now they're throwing money at stuff trying to fix inflation, and that is why we have inflation, is because they've thrown so much money at everything. But if we haven't already given the Ukraine enough money, this latest bill was for $40 billion more money to go to Ukraine. That's 40,000 million. It's unbelievable when you just start thinking about how much money that is to throw around. Biden went to and visited a farm in Illinois earlier in the week, and he decided to throw some money at your farming again, and thinking that that's going to make food cheaper. Well, when you keep throwing money at stuff, it just causes more inflation, makes everything higher. He also announced that he's going to expand double crop insurance, which a lot of guys will like, but it's just more money being spent, and increase the assistance to produce fertilizer domestically. If he would just ease up on our petroleum and make us more energy efficient, that would help out the fertilizer more than anything else, and help all our other input costs also. But it's just it's very confusing how this administration thinks they're going to fix things. But throwing money at stuff is not always the answer, and rarely is the answer there. But let's talk about your board on Thursday. June live cattle futures were down $1.92. We figured that with grains being higher, and then what little bit of livestock information on that WASDE report was kind of bearish for cattle. But we're just in a down mode right now. But down 192 at 131.65. August down $1.87 at 132.77. Your back months down 50 cents to down 207. That 207 was just on October. But May feeder cattle were down $1.27, 156.87. August down 347. You think, well, why is August so much harder down than what your May contract is? Well, we're getting close to the end of May, and your May contract has to line up with your cash market, or your CME feeder cattle index, which relays your cash market. It can't go down much anymore because it's about right. It's there right now. But when you get way out there in the front, they can jack with the price all they want. Down 347 for August. That's a very important month there for all. It relates to all those yearling green grass feeders coming off of those big pastures, in your major grazing areas. But 166.52, still a $10 premium or more than what we're getting right now. But your back months on feeder cattle down 2.25 to down 350. I mentioned your corn earlier. July contract was up just 3 cents after a bearish report. You'd have thought it had been lower, but your back months were all quite a bit higher. But your corn ended regular trading at $7.91.5. Beans were up 7 cents at $16.13 after a neutral report for them. Kansas City hard red winter wheat had that bullish world-ending stock, and they ended the trading session up 69.5 points at $12.70 a bushel. And you think, my gosh, these these limits have just gotten so huge, and how can we keep up with that? Well, it's going to get that way in your cattle too, because they just announced that they're going to have bigger limits in your cattle. So they're going up there. Your expanded limit on feeder cattle is going to be $10.50 for a daily move. It can happen like that after a limit move the previous day, or at the last couple of days of your traded month there, as it scrambles to try to get back in line with what your index levels are. But and your fed cattle are going to have expanded limits also. But my gosh, it's just every rule that we ever counted on with the CME, they've just done away with. You can deliver heifers now too. You still can't demand delivery of fed cattle. Now you can deliver fed cattle on the board still. I don't know how much longer that's going to last, but you can't demand delivery, so it never does line up. But the heck of it is, you can have a big basis like you got right now, and your hedged cattle feeders love it, And that's what CME goes after, is they just want more people trading in the market. So they just make it easier for everybody to hedge and short the market, which puts undue pressure on the market, which makes it worse for everybody. But I did hear not too long ago, but 70% of cattle feeders hedge. And that's a heck of a lot of down pressure on your market, and it keeps your market position under wraps all the time. Talk about your fat cattle trade, which kind of continued. We haven't had near the trade that we've had the last 2 or 3 weeks, but so far this past week we just kind of trickling along here. But Iowa did have about 1,100 head confirmed on Thursday, 12,200 head for the week. We had some 140. And they were quoted in the 80% or better choice. Now, who the hell in Iowa is going to sell cattle that are going to grade 80% choice or better for 140 bucks? It just doesn't make any sense. Who's doing that? Because it goes from 140 on just a drab up to 146, and then your dress trade from 227 to 228. Now, Nebraska at about 2,600 head confirmed on Thursday, about 32,600 head for the week. All their live prices were at 144, and dress trade from 227 to 234, which is a few dollars cheaper there. But Kansas had one load, about 14,000 for the week, but just a load on Thursday, and it was at 138. You got to watch these really, really low prices here that make for such a wide price range there. The 138 in Kansas, the 148 in Iowa. Texas didn't have any confirmed sales on Thursday, but on Wednesday they did and had a low of 137. Well, I missed it, but I had some people tell me on there that 137 was on the Fed Cattle Exchange. It was on Mexican origin cattle, and they were outside of the Panhandle feedlot area. Well, how can you judge those, But they go in there. If it was up to me, they wouldn't have put those Fed Cattle Exchange cattle in there. That would behoove your packers to go in there and pay more for the cattle when they really need them, because the cattle wouldn't go in the index and cost them more on their formulas. That was their whole niche right there. And then they kind of asked USDA if they would put those cattle in the average, and then they do. So now they don't have any benefit there. I would tell them we don't want to do it anymore. Kind of like your brick and mortar sales do, where they can give a lot more for cattle when they're short bought when they need them, and then they know that those prices aren't going to go into the average and cost them more on their formulas. But we've had another run of record profits announced by your packers. Tyson last week, and then JBS this week announced that their first quarter profits were up 151%. How are your profits in the first quarter there? But it's just ridiculous, and we can't seem to get any traction in the U.S. House of Representatives to get the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act passed. Now, I think we've sure got it easy in the Senate, and if we get the vote in the Senate first and it passes by a wide margin and it's bipartisan, then we may be able to get the House to vote with it too. But the House has got 435 members or whatever it is compared to 100 in the Senate, and it's just harder. It's a whole different animal there to try to feel good about getting a bill passed. But man, if we could get that bill passed, and Deb Stabenow from Michigan, who is your Senate Ag Committee chairman, she has been recently quoted as saying that she expects a vote to come up on that in a few weeks, in the coming weeks. So I had heard maybe it was going to be later in the summer, and it likely could be, but it's going to be sometime between now and fall. And if you want to kind of preserve some negotiated trade, hold this industry together as we know it, or try to hold it together, you got to let your U.S. representative know that you're in favor of the Cattle Price Discovery and Transparency Act. Box beef cutout values were higher, and we feel like they kind of bottomed middle of this week here, but choice cuts up 212 at 257.20, selects up 218 at 244.36, Your slaughter running at a good pace, 495,000 harvested this week so far up through Thursday. That's 8,000 more than last week, 29,000 more than the same week a year ago. Your actual slaughter information was bullish. For the week ending April the 30th, your average dressed steer carcass weight was 901 pounds. That's a 5-pound drop compared to the previous report. And we have really yet to get to the calves, but we're going to get to the calves earlier this year, and it should suck those weights down quite a bit as we move forward here. But let's talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction based on an 800-pound steer late in the day on Thursday at 155.30. That was down 16 cents. It's been kind of down most of this week. Look at your bigger sales on Thursday. Winter livestock in Pratt, Kansas, 3,500 head. Was mostly lower, but they did have several groups of real fancy heifers that sold sharply higher. And so, you know, it was really kind of hard to tell. Of course, you got poor market reporters in Kansas. It's really hard for them to tell one week to the next. And then they say that the feeder heifer market's 8, 10, 12 bucks higher. And then they flag all the heifers as fancy. And last week they didn't have them flagged as fancy. Well, wouldn't you kind of take that into account and figure out where that market's at? Find some average quality, average condition heifers to compare against last week. But I don't know, they don't train them anymore like they did whenever I was there. But they did have that's one stick out deal of fancy heifers, 88 head, 679 pound heifers in Pratt, Kansas at 170.50. Now they could have been in a stocker condition, they could have been replacement quality, I'm not sure, but they were girls, and they bring steer price, so pretty nice deal there. How about Farmers and Ranchers livestock in Salina, Kansas? 3,000 head there, slightly lower except for 7-weight steers and 6-weight heifers, and they've got really good demand for stocker type yearling cattle there, and I expect that's where we saw the boost for those cattle in Salina, Kansas. But going to give you some individual quotes. How about Bluegrass Stockyard South in Stanford, Kentucky? 67 head, 766 pound steers standing in the ring in Stanford, Kentucky at 162. It's a big price. How about Clarinda Livestock Auction in Clarinda, Iowa? My friends John Anderson, Frank Hepker there. 110 head, 540 pound steers in southwest Iowa bring 214.50. How about Presho Livestock? I don't get quotes from Presho very often, but Zach Ballard there, their auctioneer that I know, he sent me the quote, or this big time quote from Presho Livestock in Presho, South Dakota. 96 head, 616 pound steers at 208.50. Wow. But the best quote that I saw anywhere on Thursday, in your Rowgrow top quote for the day, come out of Mitchell Livestock. They feature big started steers there. 54 head, weighed 1,097 pounds at $147. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.